Welcome to the One Player Podcast, the show on solitaire board games. I'm your host Albert, and this is episode 344. Simply Soloer, or Simply Soloist. Hey everyone, welcome back. This is part 2 of my Simply Solo series games run through. If you missed last week's episode, you may want to go back and hear it. I talk about the 6 so far released Simply Solo games from Bud and Shy, all designed by Scott Almes. I decided to rank the games from my least favorite to my most favorite. So let me give you a rundown of the last week. My 3 least favorites, though not disliked, were Unsurmountable, The Last Lighthouse, and The World Limited. And there are different reasons why I didn't enjoy them as much as the next 3, which are going to be Food Chain Island, Ugly Gryphon, and Fishing Lessons. So those are the 6 games in total. This week I'm talking about those last 3 in order. Also, let's not forget there's a contest. All you have to do is send me a geek mail or an email, a geek mail at Fractalude, an email at albert@oneplayerpodcast.com. And let me know your favorite lighthouse ever, anywhere, whatever. Just tell me about your favorite lighthouse. It doesn't have to be a real lighthouse. It doesn't have to be. It could be lighthouse adjacent. I mean, just write something. Give me something interesting to read. So if you do that, you will win a copy of The Last Lighthouse. I have an extra copy because Bud and Shy accidentally sent me the wrong thing, and then when they fixed the order, they sent me the correct thing, and I still have that extra copy. So I guess I'll give it away. Maybe it's a way to thank Bud and Shy for sending me that extra copy by mistake. So let me give you a quick rundown of the last 3. Again, in order from least favorite to most. Unsurmountable was my least favorite. This is a game in which you're building a mountain. I did not enjoy it because I found it too easy and kind of samey, but I do like the way the difficulty level ramping up works, because I could try and win at the best and then score myself on which level I actually won at. Before that one, number 5, is The Last Lighthouse, the prize game, which is a really cool game about lighthouses in super creepy art. I like that a lot. And you're fighting nightmares or monsters or something that are flowing towards the lighthouse from the ocean. They appear out in the ocean and they get closer and closer and closer, and they're trying to attack and destroy your lighthouse, and all you're trying to do is just survive the night. I love the theme. I kind of wish there was more variety in the game, though I know there are expansions that do have more variety. Number 4, The World Limited. This is a train game in which you're building the train before it takes off. I guess you're the conductor, and you're basically arranging the cards in the correct order and putting the passengers in the card. It's a very, very tight game, and placing the cards playing cards from your hand at the right time. So you're really managing your hand very carefully, and trying to fill all the train, and hopefully finish with a perfectly packed train or no empty space. So that's The World Limited. I enjoyed that, but it's super tight and I'm no good at it. That's part of what I don't like, I think. Okay, after that, let's go ahead and get into the top 3 games. Without further ado, all right, number 3, Ugly Gryphon Inn. This is a game in which you are the proprietor of an inn, and you're filling it with guests. You have rooms for the night, and you have a bar. Patrons come in, they hang out in the bar, and some of the folks at the bar end up deciding they need a room for the night. I guess because they drank too much and now they're tired, or maybe they just came and had dinner and now are ready for their room. Whatever. So the way the game works is you have 4 guests at the bar or the restaurant, whatever it is. There are 4 cards played horizontally along the bottom, and then on the side you're going to have your inn, which, interestingly enough, the inn is a tall tower with a single room on each floor, apparently. And you always put guests at the lowest available floor. So each turn you'll take one of the guests at the bar and put them at the inn, at the bottom space. The next one will go in the space above that. Each round you put a guest from the bar into the inn, and then you refill the bar and keep repeating that. There are some caveats. So the guests are pretty persnickety, and they're very finicky, and if things aren't their way, they just leave. they're all fantasy guests. There's orcs and trolls and wizards and mermen probably and all sorts of stuff. I guess there's 18 different guest cards. So yeah, there's a lot of types of guests. There's 3 goblins, and so the guests I mentioned, they're very picky. Every guest has a preference of food or drink from the restaurant, and there's restrictions like some cards will say, "Oh, this guest, for example, maybe a nun or something, cannot be between people that drink." So the nun has to be next to food guest only, not drink guest. And if she isn't, she'll leave. Sometimes, not the nun, for example, but some of the other guests will leave and take some of the other guests with them, or maybe move things around. I think there's a wizard that if he's unhappy, he rearranges everything before he leaves. I don't remember exactly all the cards, but that's the idea. So you're playing all these cards in order. If a guest leaves, everybody moves down one room. And then the next round, you'll now see if the rule's broken for them. Actually, and you start from the top down. So if a guest leaves because their rule was broken, then you go to the guest below that and see if their rule is broken, but not the one above it. Next round, you see the one above it. So that's how the game is working. You're doing this. There's another part of it, which is there's quirks. Some guests hate noise. Some guests hate smelly guests. Some guests hate fighting. And it's based on the bar. Each guest also has icons in their card. I think they all do. Maybe some don't. That represent fighting or smelliness or noisiness. If you have 3 of the same symbol out at the bar, then any guests that are annoyed by that, their quirks happen and then they get upset and leave. So you kind of need to manage who's at the bar. Like if you have 2 of something, you maybe want to take one of those so that you don't get the third one. But you also need to be careful about who you place next, because if you place the wrong guest, that could cause a cascading chain reaction of guests that suddenly leave. That's a problem, not only because that means you don't get paid, but because to win the game, you have to finish by going through the whole deck and still having at least 7 guests in the hotel. Basically half. That's it. I guess that's the easiest mode. You could also make it difficult by saying, I need more guests. I like this game. I'm not very good at it either, but I find it interesting, and there's a lot of puzzliness in figuring the things out, and I like the fantasy theme, and the cards are kind of silly. Some of the cards have funny names. I like the goblins, for example. There's 3 goblins. One is a noisy goblin, one's a smelly goblin, one's a fighty goblin. And they all leave if there's ever 3 goblins in the hotel. So you could place 2 of them, but not the third one. So, I don't know, they're just kind of silly, and I thematically, and I like that about them. There's also expansions for the game. They add different things. Some add more guests. There's dragons that, if they get upset, I think they destroy some of the guests. There's an annex to the inn. I forget what that one's called, but basically it's now rooms going downward instead of upward. So there's 2 things you want to fill, and there's different things. There's people that work at the bar for you. You could play with those also. Each expansion changes things, so it's interesting. So yeah, that's the Ugly Gryphon Inn, a silly game about arranging guests at a hotel, at a tavern. And crazy as it sounds, it kind of gives me an appreciation for what hotel folks have to do, in the real world, to accommodate guests in a hotel. It's obviously not the same, and it's not tall single stacked rooms, but there's things you have to account for when you're. And like I said, surprisingly, has given me appreciation for it. So that was my number 3. My number 2, and I gotta say, I hate doing things in reverse order, because whenever you get to number 2, if you know everything that's in it, like say there's a beauty pageant or something like that, right? When you get to number 2, you always know who the winner is, and I dislike that, because whenever you announce number 2, everybody gets excited for number 1, and I feel bad for number 2, but I don't know what else to do about that. Number 2 is fishing lessons. Oh my gosh, everybody! Food Chain Island! Ah! Right? So no, fishing lessons is a great game. Let's not gloss over it. Let's actually get into this, because I actually like this game a lot. The theme, when it came out, I'm not that into it. I'm not into fishing. I used to like fishing a lot when I was young, and then I gave it up when I caught a fish by his eye, and that just really bothered me, and I've never wanted to fish again. The poor thing. We threw it back, but I doubt it survived. Or maybe for a little while. Anyway, On that grim note, so this is a story about a man who has taught his family to fish over many years, and he's now retired. He's got children and grandchildren, and you play as one of these family members trying to fish and using his lessons to hopefully catch a fish. What this really is a program movement game in which you're going to play cards, lesson cards, on the table in order, and you could play them in whatever order you like. You could add cards to the front of the order or the back or the middle of the order. You could even replace existing orders. But once you've placed your lesson card, you will then go from the first to the last lesson, applying them and hopefully catching the right fish. Okay, so that was a quick summary of a quick description. You're gonna play out lay cards on the table in a line. So there's I think it's 6 or 7 lay cards, and you're gonna place there's 4. Well, I don't know how many there are, maybe 5 or 6 people you could play as. Each has a different go of what they want to catch, and I should get these cards out. Hang on, because yeah. So yeah, there's 4 different people you could play as actually, and they're all relatives. There's not 4. There's 6. And there's not 8. There's 6. They're double-sided cards, and each side is a different family member. It could be the brother, the daughter, grandson, granddaughter, his son-in-law, or his wife, Maya. You play as one of those characters. They each want a different goal. And basically, the lake cards are double-sided. The back is just a picture of the lake, still with nothing in there. The front it has the picture of the lake with a couple fish in it, some number of fish. I think they're all 2. And each fish has a letter on it. The letters could be A, B, C, and T, I think. I guess T for trout, C for carp, I don't know, B for bass. L, there's no A, there's S. Shark? I don't know. I don't think it's a shark. It's a silver carp. Anyway, it tells you on the cards right there. B is bluegill. So C is flathead catfish. So anyway, each card has 2 fish with 2 different letters on it. And you've got all these face down. Each character wants to catch some combination of fish. For example, the brother wants to catch 2 bass, 2 catfish, and 2 trout. The neighbor's an expansion. The grandson wants 4S. Exactly. The wife wants 3C and 2B. Okay, to win, you have to have the exact number of that type of fish face up. Any other cards that don't contribute to that goal of having those letters face up, those fish face up, have to be face down. However, you can have other letters that are visible that are not part of your goal, as long as they do contain letters you need. So well, I'm not going to give a great example because it would be helpful to visualize it. But if you need 2S and 2T, you need 2 cards with S face up, 2 cards with T face up. All the other cards need to be face down. The cards that are face up can have other letters besides S and T, but they have to have S and T in them. And it has to be the exact number that you need of those 2. The rest doesn't matter what number you have up. Yeah, I think that should be clear enough. So that's how the game works. You're trying to do that. Oh, well, that's not how the game works. That's how how winning works. The way you get to that, because you start with the cards face down, and I really haven't told you how to flip cards over, is you have a hand of lessons. Each turn, you're going to play a lesson on the table, and then starting from the leftmost lesson to the rightmost lesson, you will follow the instructions on it. The instructions basically include things like 2 effects. Most of them are a move effect and a flip effect. They may be in different orders. Sometimes they may have 2 move or 2 flip, but it'll say things like move 2 spaces or move 1 or 2 spaces, and you move that character that distance, going left or right to a different lake card. You choose which direction it is, unless the card would tell you otherwise, which I don't think any do. And then some cards also have flips on them, or most cards have flip on them. It will tell you flip the card under your boat, or flip the card under your character card also. The character is on a boat. Or flip the cards adjacent to it only, but not the one under your boat. Or there's other combinations of things. There's some that say like flip a card 2 cards away. It doesn't matter if it's on the left or the right. Some may, well, actually no, I think it does always matter. Some will be both left and right. Some might say, oh, flip the two cards just immediately left of the boat or immediately right of the boat, whatever. So you play the card, you do your move, and you do your flip, and then that ends a turn. You now have some combination of cards face up. Depending on the difficulty level, you may just have one, or you may still need to do more. Assuming you haven't won, then you go to the next round. You have refilled your hand. You now play another card to the table. You could play it in front of the lessons that are already out, or after the lessons that are already out, or replace one of the lessons that's already out. Let's say I play it after. I now go through and do the lesson I had already done once. I'll move my boat, choose which direction and how far I want to travel, and I'll do any flips I have to do on that card. It may be flip first and move, or move first and flip, depends on the card. Then you move on to your next card and do the same thing. So you're going to end up potentially flipping cards back that you already flipped, or you're maybe flipping cards face up that haven't been face up, and then moving to new locations and doing the same thing and repeating, depending on how many cards are out, how many lessons are out. That's where the program movement comes in. I mentioned that at the beginning of talking about this game. You play the cards and then follow the effects of all the cards that have been played. And each round you add one more to that chain somewhere in that chain anyway. So that's the game. Keep playing until you've caught the right fish, and throw the rest back by flipping those cards face down. It sounds simple enough. It is challenging. That program movement stuff gets pretty challenging. I mean, you could sit there and think about it carefully and do the moves, but because the distance you can move is variable sometimes, it adds complexity to that. And I really like it. In my mind, because you're trying to get the cards either face up or face down, it's very much a binary puzzle. I don't know how true that is, but that's the way I think of it, and I suspect there is something to that. Whatever, I don't know if that's here or there. But yeah, that is fishing lessons. I really enjoy this game. I like the mechanic of it. I like the program movement. I like the very much a logic puzzle type of game. Even though, there isn't a whole lot of randomness, I guess. There is at first because you don't know which cards are face down, but as you start flipping them and learning what cards are available, you lose a lot of the randomness and you gain a lot of logic puzzle to it. The only randomness that will be remaining is what lesson are you going to draw. But since you have a hand of lessons to pick from to play, that kind of reduces the impact of the randomness. Because it is, I want to call it open information, but it's not exactly true until you've seen all the fish cards or deduce which cards are missing. I think that's what I like. I think what I like about this game so much is that it is a logic puzzle, and I do like logic puzzle games. There are a couple expansions for it. I think there might be an expansion collection for it, which they seem to like to do. But I have, I think, 2 expansions. One is Family Friends, which brings 2 more characters to play with. I think, is that the only card? Oh, and 2 lesson cards. So you just add those lessons to your game. I think you could always use the lessons. You don't have to include in the expansion. But if I remember right, when you play, you're going to discard a couple. You're going to shuffle them up and discard a couple, so you don't know which lessons you're going to have available for this game until you draw them all. The other expansion that I have is called Fabled Fish. I haven't tried this one at all yet, which has a couple new types of fish in there, and they have special powers. They're little fishes with stars instead of letters, and when you flip those, whenever you reveal it, you take some sort of action, which is generally either move your boat somewhere or flip other cards, which basically adds to the programming. that I could see that being much more complicated. I guess I move my boat 2 spaces to flip the card that I know has a magic fish, so that I could flip the card next to it. Yeah, that's a bit of a logic puzzle. Let me see here. Yes, let's take you out, yo. All right, so that is my number 2, Fishing Lessons. Really, really cool game. I like this a lot. And that brings us to my number 1, which you have already probably figured out since we kind of gave it away. My number 1 is Food Chain Island. So this is actually the first game in the series to have come out. I think before, when it came out, I'm not sure I realized it was a series. They probably announced it as a series, but I didn't realize it. So I think this game, to me, feels different from the rest. Actually, so does Fishing Lessons. A lot of the other games, all the other games so far, I think a lot of them, the feeling is I am playing cards, and the cards I play will have effect on other cards. And so choosing which card to play is key to doing well in this game. And I get that kind of feeling from all the other games. I didn't get it so much from Fishing Lessons because I think what really came through on that is the program movement. And it doesn't come through that way for me in Food Chain Island. I think folks might disagree with me on this one, and I think that's probably fine. It's just the way it feels to me. The last four all felt similar. These feel more unique. So let me give you a pretty quick idea of what the next game, Food Chain Island, is about. Are you familiar with the game Haikyuu? The version I remember is published by Gabrielle, and it's basically a peg solitaire game. And in it, there's a bunch of pegs with a little hose, and each turn, one peg jumps. There's one empty hole, by the way. One peg jumps over another peg to land in its empty hole, and you remove the peg that was jumped over. You keep doing this until you can no longer move, or there is only one peg left, and you can no longer move. If you get all of them but that last one, you win. It's an old game. It used to be called Solitaire, and now, at least apparently according to Wikipedia, in the US it's now called Peg Solitaire because Solitaire is now what people call the card game, Patience. So anyway, whatever. That peg jumping thing, that's pretty much what the game we're talking about next is. The one big difference, actually there's a few differences, but the biggest one is that instead of jumping over to remove a piece, you jump onto and then eat the card you jumped onto. If you get the idea of like trying to move and slowly reduce the size of the available pieces and kind of therefore the board, that's what the game is like in a very simplified nutshell. Food Chain Island. So this is a game about survival of the fittest, maybe. It's about the food chain of big animals eat smaller animals, eat smaller animals, eat smaller animals. So in this game, most of the cards are the same. There's 2 water animal cards and then 16 land animal cards. You're playing an island, so most of the game is really about the land animal cards. So let me just get the water animals out of the way. There's a whale and a shark. And when you play these, you're going to just have them available on the table. And once during the game, you could use one of those 2 cards for its effect. The rest of the cards are all land animals, and they're numbered 0 through 15. The 0 is actually not an animal, but a plant. Where's that card? Here it is. It's a plant. Eats nothing. The number 1 is an ant. It eats 0. Number 2 is a spider. It eats the number 1, the ant. All right. Number 3, the mouse eats a spider. Then the lizard eats the mouse. And so far, all the way up to where we got, 14. I have my cards out of order. Should have sorted these first. It would have made this a little easier. Number 13 is the gator. The lion eats the gator. Number 14, the lion eats a gator. And then number 15, the polar bear eats the lion. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the cards are like. The art on them is cute. It's cute and morbid. It has a picture of the animal eating whatever the card before it was. So the plant just has a picture of a plant. Then the ant has a picture of an ant eating the plant. The spider has a picture of the spider eating that ant, right, and so on. And at the end you see, and it's like a little it's the animal with little X's for the eyes showing its dead. So like the polar bear is eating a lion with his eyes closed as X. So I don't know. It's cutely drawn, but it's grim. The art style reminds me a lot of a children's book. That's actually what the look of this game is, I think. I bet you that's what they said. We want it to look like a children's book with cute little animals. Like the mouse is at a dinner table with a pink dinner table with a salt and pepper shaker and the upside down spider on a plate. I don't know. I don't think about the art too much because I do think it bothers me a little bit. Anyway, gameplay. So what you do in this game is you're going to lay out the cards in a grid. There's 16 cards. It's 4x4 grid. You're going to shuffle them all up and then play them face up randomly. So you got all sorts of different numbers next to each other. The way the game works is each round you move one animal to eat an adjacent animal. You choose which one. The only restriction is the cards have to eat a number that's 1, 2, or 3 lower than itself. So, for example, the lynx, number 10, can only eat 9, 8, or 7. right? The fox, the raccoon, or the snake. So it moves onto it and eats it. When a card eats another card, it then triggers its effect. And every single card has a different effect. The bat, for example, after the bat eats, move it to any other space. I guess because bats fly. The raccoon, when the raccoon eats, the next turn, if the predator eats a prey valued exactly one less, discard any one unstacked animal. So let's get you rid of an animal for free. The mouse, when the mouse eats, move one animal 1 or 2 spaces. So a lot of these cards, after it eats, it lets you rearrange the table space in front of you to hopefully make other cards more eatable. When a card eats another card, you basically move it on top of that other card, and you start getting a stack of taller and taller cards. So the game is really about figuring out which card to eat where, so you can then eat something else next, and maybe use that effect to help you, and finish the game with up to 3 stacks at most. If you do that, you have won the game. If you didn't finish with 3 or less, and you finish basically once you can't do any more moves. That could happen because the numbers are not near each other. For example, if you have a stack with a 7 on top and a stack with a 3 on top, they're 4 apart, so they couldn't eat each other. It's also an issue if they're not adjacent. If you may end up with stacks in the opposite corners, well, they can never eat each other. They're just way too far. This is where the whale and shark come in. They could help with this sort of thing. The whale lets you move one animal to any other space. The shark lets you move an animal 1 space to eat an adjacent animal with any lower value. So, and you can use those ones exactly each. So, when to use them is important, and how you use it and what you eat with it. So that's Food Chain Island. Very much a puzzly game, which again is what I like, since I like these kind of logic puzzle type games. There are expansions for it. There's an expansion collection, I believe, and they generally add more animals and more land animals, more sea animals, and also some sky animals. I forget how the sky animals work now. I have used them, but I don't remember offhand. I think in some cases you replace other cards. I probably always replace other cards. It's been a while since I played with those. And there's different themes. Like the sky animals will have different types of birds. There's a legendary creatures that has a... What's in this one? A mandrake, a death worm, a jackalope, a kraken, a phoenix. So yeah. So that is Food Chain Island. It's a game I really enjoy a lot, and it is very puzzly. And that is the end of the looking at the 6 Button Shy Simply Solo games. I hope you have enjoyed this little series, and don't forget to enter the contest.
Thanks for listening. We love feedback, so we love hearing from you. You can reach me at julius@oneplayerpodcast.com or JLBird on BGG, and Albert can be reached at albert@oneplayerpodcast.com or Fractalude on BGG. Our website is oneplayerpodcast.com with the number 1, and we're also on Twitter at oneplayerpodcast. The intro music is copyright Angus, can be found at jamendo.com. The transition music is copyright by Dan El Duce Pancaldi, whose page is at donpancaldi.com. The One Player Podcast is protected under a Creative Commons share-alike license. Thanks for listening.